Good evening, fellow Ambazonians. Today na Sunday, the 7th day for the month of March 2021. My name na Capo, the Deputy Defense Chief of the Ambazonia Defense Forces. This one na my daily podcast for una. Firstly, this month dan begin with the people of the war rising up to ask Cameroon government to stop its violence against the people of Ambazonia, with the parliamentarians from the United Kingdom, even France, Germany, and the United States of America calling the people of the Southern Cameroon by their legal name, the Southern Cameroon. International pressure is mounting for Mr. Paul Biya Bivondo, the president of French Cameroon, to resolve the root cause of the war that have ensued for the past 4 years between Ambazonia and La République du Cameroun. The change in international terminology describing the people of Southern Cameroon by their official name rather than using Northwest or Southwest or simply the Anglophone region marks a huge milestone for Ambazonia's quest to exercise its rights of self-determination and exert its sovereignty over its internationally recognized border of the British Southern Cameroon. The pro-independent forces in Ambazonia have successfully neutralized the armored vehicles that the Cameroon military then rely upon for penetrate deep into Ambazonian-controlled and liberated area, forcing the Cameroon government to turn to pure propaganda to show military victory where there is none. This one they come, as we can see, Cameroon government, the display in front of a military general, General Valerin Carr, the terrorist general for La République du Cameroun, fake weapons posing as captured weapons from the Ambazonian Defense Forces, Bui Brigade in Yellow. While on social media and on news publication, the Cameroon government have turned to bribery and corruption and using field operative embedded agents in the Ambazonian revolution that have been discovered, like the so-called General Godi, and manager to parade as former or ex-Ambazonian fighters in their fake and failed project of the disarmament centers that have been filled with relatives from the village of CPDM people whose children in the village are simply attracted by the promise to stay in free guest house and learn some trades like carpentry, only for them to move into the city centers of La République like Douala and Yaoundé and pose as Ambazonian former fighters, and then being abandoned by themselves to fend for themselves, as we have seen this so-called ex-Ambazonian fighter protesting for lack of food both in Yaoundé, Douala, and in Bamenda. Ambazonians should be rest assured, say the state of our revolution is solid. Our forces have doubled. The launching of the stabilization force by the Ambazonian Defense Forces, it then take the struggle for another level. The weaponry where the Ambazonian Defense Forces with their sister forces that they use them this time now all machine gun and AK-47. The same one the way La République du Cameroun they began to dominate our territory with them. The destruction of armored vehicles by the Ambazonian Defense Forces, the Bui Brigade and the Bamenda Brigade, have shown the Ambazonian people that we have successfully found a medicine to neutralize this armored car that La République have borrowed from China and the French government to use in its operation to terrorize our people in its campaign for subjugation. For amber to amber, journalism, it don't always be a field where the population they take pride in. But now, these days, we don't see, wait away, I go only feel column, say, sanctimonious hypocrisy for the Ambazonian journalists, where it did for Yaoundé, it do the program, they call them, say, Cameroon Calling.
Ateba Eyene of blessed memory was used to saying two things, namely, that Cameroonians are specialists in the art of being out of topic, and that in Cameroon, the abnormal becomes normal, and the normal becomes abnormal. Guess he was right and indeed echoed the minds of many Cameroonians who still had a sense of duty and a strong character to build a nation, one that is prosperous and peaceful, one that is developed and forward-looking.
With all the big book, you go think say he talk na sense, but he go further for explain how Mr. Pobia na champion in the same way be the praise Pobia said and give it JC number 9 before the big blunder where Morocco is sample La République du Cameroon for inside Victoria with 4-0. You go check say this journalist go get sense, he tend for condemn the SDF people them, including Maurice Kamto, where they criticize Joshua O.C. for writing his letter from American Senate for condemning them for raining down on Mr. Pobia, calling on Pobia to stop the atrocity the way they make them impossible for La République du Cameroon or Ambazonia for receive a refugee them within there for America. The abnormal becomes normal. What is normal? With somebody who rejected that there is so-called the Anglophone problem, Mr. Tanganjipo, to be promoted to the level of the first so-called Anglophone Minister of Territorial Administration in La République. The abnormal becomes normal. What is normal for the so-called gentleman, Prime Minister Giangote, for elevate a third and a hate speech chief Moja to the level of recognition of a state while burning the palace of Bafut, which is an international heritage? What is abnormal have become normal for La République. On a greater scale, what is abnormal is that a foreign country, France, have hired a puppet manipulate the former president of La République du Cameroun, Amadou Ahidjo, to resign and put in place a brutal dictator that have hijacked a country, recruits his henchmen made of thieves, former convicts, and pure con men who have looted the coffers of that country and plunder the state into bankruptcy. And it is totally abnormal that no one, in particularly in their military, have risen up. What is abnormal is that Mr. Pobia have created a propagandist so-called CRTV and hire shit-no-wipelers for journalists like the one in the Cameroon calling, who have been manipulating their people for so long using big grammar full of garbage, and no one have spoken out. What is abnormal is that La République du Cameroon, through the predecessor of Mr. Pobia, sent its gendarmes without the permission of the Parliament of the British Southern Cameroon to march into our land, a land that was the first democratic self-governing territory in Africa, a land that gave them asylum to their people who were fleeing away from the brutal regime of the French government. And they set up their offices in Buea, a country where its people, the same generation, have walked out of Nigeria, a more powerful country, and yet they stayed quiet. What is abnormal have become normal. What is abnormal is that no one raised a gun against the invading and occupation forces of La République du Cameroun. What is abnormal is the absence of any form of military resistance to the encroachment into Ambazonian sovereign territory by La République du Cameroun, gendarmes and terrorist forces. This one be unheard of. Say a tyrant who have denied to leave power, rig multiple elections, will send his Turks inside the University of Buea, into the hotels in Buea, to torture, rape our students, and dishonor our men of law, our lawyers. And yet, the same lawyers carry their bags and move into Yaoundé and Douala to practice the same law, where still they were beaten up by a magistrate and tear gassed inside the house of law in Douala. What is abnormal have become normal. What is abnormal is that students were shot at point blank in the University of Buea. Student quarters in Bambili burnt down. Students humiliated under the supervisions of top military officials, and no one have risen its voice to call for justice for those students. What is abnormal have become normal. What is abnormal is that these people rape women in Du, and the same man who ordered for the murder of people in Du, the SDU, was then promoted to a governor. What is abnormal is that the Cameroon military came with its Mbororo proxy forces into Ngarbu, murdered pregnant women, burned children alive, and turned and put the village head of Ngarbu to stand and cover up for the same military. What have become normal is an abnormality. What is abnormal is that after over 300 villages burnt down, after our people, more than 30,000 murdered in cold blood, this same shitholes called elite who sit in Yaoundé and make this stupid, idiotic Cameroon callings will come down to our villages to campaign for the same government. And yet, they are not tortured and whipped like thieves and burnt alive on our street like we do with common thieves. What is normal have become normal. What is abnormal is that after the killing of our people, the burning of villages, the humiliation of our people, the same chiefs and funds that have been decapitated from any form of dignity and say in the livelihood of their people will be called and given small 10,000 to go and stand in the so-called house of chiefs, and they will go walking on the blood and the corpse of their kingsmen. This is what is abnormal. What is abnormal is that these same chiefs have not been hung publicly and their bodies fed to dogs because this is what they deserve. What is abnormal have become normal. What is abnormal is that in the face of this brutality, Ambazonians have not touched Francophones within our cities. That is what is abnormal. What is abnormal is that in the case of clear-cut oppression, clear-cut campaign of subjugation, some of our men of God still are playing the play game of neutrality. What is abnormal is that those who in the past have sought to represent these people politically have not stand up to represent their aspiration and speak for them and back for them, as they have risen up to demand for nothing but separation and independence, with all types of polling to demonstrate that the vast majority of these people are demanding for nothing else, nothing other than separation. Yet those who call themselves politicians, men of God, have stayed quiet. These are the abnormalities. But this is the never again generation. A generation of the General Ivors have risen up to say never again. Never again shall we bow our head and yield to a system that bans our history, that criminalizes our right of self-determination and political organization and participation. Never again shall we listen and watch and take for facts what we see over CRTV. Never again shall we allow such chiefs not to represent the will of our people and come back and sit within our people. Never again shall we allow political scavengers who sit in Yaoundé and Douala to come and pose and represent themselves as parliamentarians and senators without any consequences. Never again shall we allow La République du Cameroun to go around our village, burn them, kill them, murder our people with impunity. Never again shall we surrender our security and sovereignty to any foreign state here on earth. Never again shall we be a subjugated people and accept special status or any name or appellation from a foreign government. Our brothers in the northern Cameroon who joined Nigeria as a federation have more control of their land, more than us, a category B territory that was self-governed by our own people. We shall not receive shit from La République du Cameroon and say thank you. We shall not and will never compromise on our human dignities and rights as a people to serve, govern, and determine the political outlook of our territory. The aspiration of our people and their will must be religiously respected and enforced in the land of our birth. Ambazonians have demanded independence. Ambazonians' independence, so shall it be. Over our blood shall La République du Cameroon hold and govern that territory. Long live the resistance. Long live self-determination. Long live the Republic of Ambazonia. Short live our war for liberation and independence of our homeland, the British Southern Cameroon, Ambazonia.